The notification sound from Jessica's phone pierced through the quiet Tuesday evening like a knife. She was in the kitchen of their shared apartment, preparing dinner for her boyfriend of 3 years, Mark, who was supposedly working late at his marketing firm again. The message wasn't meant for her eyes, but Mark had left his phone on the counter while he showered, and the preview was impossible to ignore. Can't wait to see you tomorrow night. Room 412 at the Marriott. Love you, baby. Jessica's hands froze over the chopping board, the knife suspended mid-cut through an onion. The sender's name read Amanda, with a heart emoji next to it. Jessica stared at the screen, her mind racing to find an innocent explanation. Maybe Amanda was a client. Maybe it was a work event. Maybe she was misunderstanding the context. But, deep down, in that place where intuition lives, she already knew the truth. The shower was still running upstairs in their cozy 2-bedroom apartment in downtown Portland. Jessica and Mark had moved in together 8 months ago, after he'd convinced her to leave her studio apartment in the trendy Pearl District. She had given up her independence, her space, her carefully curated life to build something together with a man she thought she knew. Jessica Rodriguez was 28 years old, a successful freelance graphic designer who had built her career from scratch after immigrating from Mexico with her family at age 12. She spoke 3 languages fluently, had clients across the globe, and had saved enough money to buy her own condo before Mark suggested they take the next step by moving in together. Looking back now, she could see the red flags she had ignored. The late nights that became more frequent, the way Mark had become protective of his phone, never leaving it unattended except for tonight's careless mistake, the decreased intimacy, the distracted conversations, the way he seemed to be living a parallel life that didn't include her. She picked up his phone with trembling fingers. It was still unlocked from when he'd been scrolling through social media before his shower. Jessica's thumb hovered over the message thread. She had never violated someone's privacy like this before. Her mother had raised her to respect boundaries, to trust, until given a reason not to. But the reason was right there, glowing on the screen. She opened the conversation. The messages went back 3 months. 3 months of "I miss you. You're amazing. I wish I could leave her, but it's complicated." Her name. They were talking about her like she was an obstacle, a problem to be solved rather than a human being with feelings. Amanda worked at Mark's company. From the messages, Jessica pieced together that she was the new marketing coordinator, 20 years old, recently graduated from college. Mark had been mentoring her, taking her to client dinners, and apparently, much more. The shower turned off upstairs. Jessica quickly closed the phone and placed it back exactly where Mark had left it. She returned to chopping the onion, grateful that the tears streaming down her face could be attributed to the vegetable's sting rather than her. Shattered heart. Mark came downstairs 20 minutes later, hair damp, wearing the cologne she had bought him for his birthday last month, the same cologne he was apparently wearing for another woman. "Something smells amazing," he said, kissing her cheek with the same lips that had been whispering lies for months. "Sorry, I'm so late tonight. The Peterson account is killing us." Jessica had heard about the Peterson account dozens of times. Now she wondered how many of those stories were fabrications, alibis for his real activities. "How was your day?" Mark asked, opening a beer and settling onto the couch. He picked up his phone immediately, as had become his habit. "Good," Jessica managed, her voice steadier than she felt. "Finished the logo for that tech startup. Landed 2 new clients." "That's great, babe," Mark replied, but she could see he wasn't really listening. His attention was on his phone, presumably deleting the evidence of his double life. They ate dinner in relative silence, Mark distracted and Jessica numb. She watched him across their small dining table, this man she had shared her bed with, her dreams with, her fears with. 3 years of building what she thought was a foundation for a future together, and he had been systematically dismantling it with lies. After dinner, Mark announced he had to return some work calls from his home office. Jessica nodded, cleaning up while he disappeared into the spare bedroom they had converted into his workspace. Through the thin walls, she could hear his voice, soft and affectionate in a way it hadn't been with her in months. Jessica sat on their couch, staring at the walls decorated with photos of their relationship, their trip to San Francisco last year, the camping expedition where Mark had said he was falling in love with her, her birthday party where he had given a speech about how lucky he felt to have found his person. It was all a lie, or if not a complete lie, then at least not the whole truth. She pulled out her laptop and did what any modern woman in her situation would do. She investigated. Amanda Chen's social media profiles were public. She was beautiful in that effortless way of someone in their early 20s, with long black hair and a smile that spoke of someone who believed the world was full of possibilities. The photos told the story Jessica's heart already knew. Amanda and Mark at company events, standing closer than colleagues should. A group photo from a work retreat where Mark's hand was possessively on Amanda's shoulder. Most damning of all, a photo from 2 weeks ago at a restaurant Jessica recognized. A place Mark had told her he was going for a client dinner. Jessica screenshotted everything methodically, her graphic designer's eye for detail serving her well in documenting the evidence of her own betrayal. She created a folder on her desktop titled The Truth and began building a comprehensive case. By the time Mark emerged from his office 3 hours later, Jessica had a clear picture of the timeline. The affair had started during the company retreat in August. It had escalated quickly, with nearly daily contact and weekly hotel meetings. From the messages she had glimpsed earlier, it was serious. Amanda thought Mark was going to leave Jessica. Mark had been promising her that he just needed time to handle the situation. "Ready for bed?" Mark asked, acting like the devoted boyfriend he had been pretending to be for months. Jessica looked at him. This stranger, wearing her boyfriend's face. "Actually, I think I'll stay up a bit longer. I have some work to finish." "Don't stay up too late," he said, kissing the top of her head. "I have an early morning tomorrow." Another client breakfast. Another lie, she was certain. As Mark went upstairs, Jessica remained on the couch, her laptop warm against her legs. She had a choice to make. She could confront him immediately, have the explosive fight that would end their relationship in tears and accusations. She could pretend she hadn't seen anything and live in denial, hoping the affair would end on its own. Or she could take control of the narrative. Jessica had built her business from nothing by being strategic, by thinking several steps ahead, by never letting emotions cloud her judgment. If Mark wanted to play games, she would show him how the game was really played. She opened a new document and began typing, "Plan for taking back my life." She had 36 hours until his next rendezvous with Amanda. That gave her enough time to prepare for the confrontation that would end this chapter of her life and begin the next one. By 3 in the morning, Jessica had a comprehensive strategy. She would gather irrefutable evidence, secure her financial independence, and confront Mark in a way that left him with absolutely no room to manipulate the situation or make her feel guilty for his choices. For the first time in months, Jessica felt powerful instead of confused, angry instead of sad. Mark thought he was in control of this situation, managing to women while deciding which future suited him better. He was about to learn that Jessica Rodriguez didn't wait around to be chosen. The next morning, Jessica woke up before Mark's alarm, which was unusual for her but necessary for what she had planned. She made coffee and acted normal, kissing him goodbye as he left for his early client meeting while mentally noting that Amanda's social media showed her arriving at work early that day to. As soon as Mark's car disappeared around the corner, Jessica sprang into action. She had exactly 8 hours before he returned home, and she intended to use every minute strategically. Bus stop. Their shared bank accounts. Jessica had always been financially independent, even after moving in with Mark. She maintained her own business account, but they had opened a joint account for shared expenses like rent, utilities, and groceries. As she scrolled through the recent transactions, a pattern emerged that made her stomach turn. Hotel charges at the Marriott downtown, expensive dinners at restaurants they had never been to together, a jewelry purchase from Tiffany that she had never received, flowers ordered from an upscale florist, delivered to an address she didn't recognize. Mark had been financing his affair with money from their joint account, money that included her contributions. Jessica calculated the total. Over $3,000 in the past 2 months alone. Money that was supposed to be building their shared future had been funding her betrayal. She immediately transferred her half of the joint account balance to her personal account and closed her access to the joint account. If Mark was going to spend money on another woman, he could do it with his own funds. Next, she called her lawyer friend, Carmen, who specialized in relationship law and prenup. "Jess, what's wrong? You sound terrible," Carmen said immediately upon hearing Jessica's voice. "Mark's cheating. I have proof. I need to know my rights." Carmen's lawyer mode activated instantly. "Okay, first of all, I'm so sorry. Second, since you're not married, this is actually easier legally. Are you on the lease together?" "Yes, both our names are on it." "Any shared property, investments, debts?" Jessica ran through their financial entanglement, which thankfully was minimal. They had kept most of their finances separate, a decision Mark had initially resisted but Jessica had insisted upon. "The good news is you can extract yourself cleanly," Carmen explained. "The bad news is he can make the apartment situation difficult if he wants to." "What's your plan?" "I'm going to confront him tonight. I want him gone, Carmen. I want him out of my apartment, out of my life, and I want it to be his choice to leave. Revenge planning isn't usually my area of expertise, but as your friend, I'm intrigued. What are you thinking?" Jessica outlined her strategy, and Carmen's laughter grew more delighted with each detail. "Remind me never to cross you," Carmen said, "but also, remind me to hire you if I ever need someone destroyed professionally and personally." "This is brilliant." After securing legal advice, Jessica's next stop was Mark's office building. She had been there dozens of times for company parties and casual visits, so the security guard recognized her and waved her through without question. "Surprise, visit for Mark the guard," Tony asked cheerfully. Something like that, Jessica replied with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. She took the elevator to the 4th floor, where Mark's marketing firm occupied half the building. The receptionist, a sweet woman named Lisa who had always been friendly to Jessica, looked up with surprise. "Jessica, how nice to see you. Mark didn't mention you were coming by." "It's a surprise," Jessica said. "Is he in meetings all day?" "Actually, he's in a conference room with Amanda from our team. They've been working on the Peterson account presentation all morning." Of course they had. "That's Amanda Chen, right? The new coordinator?" Jessica asked casually. "Yes, she's wonderful. So dedicated, always staying late, always volunteering for extra projects with Mark. They make a great team." Jessica bet they did. "Could you point me toward the conference room? I thought I'd just peek in and say hi." Lisa hesitated. "Well, they did say not to disturb them. Important presentation prep, you know how it is." "Of course, I understand completely. Actually, could I use the restroom first?" "Sure, just down the hall to the right." Instead of going to the restroom, Jessica quietly made her way toward the conference rooms. The building was typical open office modern design, with glass-walled meeting rooms that offered little privacy. She found Mark and Amanda in the 3rd conference room, and what she saw confirmed everything she already knew. They weren't working on any presentation. Mark had his arm around Amanda, who was sitting in his lap. They were kissing with the passion of people who believed they were hidden from the world. On the table in front of them lay a small gift box from Tiffany, presumably containing whatever jewelry Mark had charged to their joint account. Jessica took out her phone and recorded 30 seconds of video through the glass wall. The quality was perfect, the evidence irrefutable. She had seen enough. Back in the lobby, Jessica approached Lisa again. "Actually, they looked really busy in there. Could you give this to Mark when he's free?" She handed the receptionist a sealed envelope. Inside the envelope was a single piece of paper with a message typed in. Jessica's professional font design skills. "Conference room C has glass walls. Your Peterson account meeting was very enlightening. We need to talk. Home by 6 p.m. sharp. Come alone." By the time Jessica returned home, she had completed phase 2 of her plan. She had documented the financial infidelity, secured legal advice, gathered video evidence, and informed Mark that his secret was no longer secret. But she wasn't done. Jessica spent the afternoon preparing for the confrontation that would happen in less than 3 hours. She moved all of Mark's belongings into neat piles by the front door. His clothes, his books, his toiletries, his gaming console. Everything that belonged to him was packaged and ready for departure. Then she called her support system, her sister. Maria agreed to be on standby for emotional support. Her best friend Kate offered to come over immediately, but Jessica declined. This was something she needed to do alone, but knowing help was one phone call away gave her strength. At exactly 5:30 p.m., Mark's key turned in the lock. Jessica was sitting at their dining table, her laptop open in front of her, a printed stack of evidence beside her. She had changed out of her casual clothes into her favorite business outfit, a sharp black blazer and tailored pants that made her feel powerful and in control. Mark walked in looking nervous, his eyes immediately going to the piles of his belongings by the door. "Jess, what's all this? Did you get my note?" "I can explain. Sit down, Mark," Jessica said calmly, not looking up from her laptop. "Look, I don't know what you think you saw, but Amanda and I were just ... Sit down." This time, Jessica looked at him directly, and something in her tone made Mark comply immediately. "I'm going to talk, and you're going to listen," Jessica continued. "When I'm finished, you're going to make a choice. But first, let me show you what I know." She turned her laptop screen toward him. The video from the conference room was paused on a frame that showed him and Amanda in an intimate embrace. The Tiffany box, clearly visible on the table. Mark's face went pale. "Jessica, I can explain. It's not what it looks like." "It's exactly what it looks like," Jessica replied, "but that's just the beginning of what I discovered today." She slid the printed bank statements across the table. Mark's eyes widened as he saw the highlighted charges, the hotels, the restaurants, the jewelry, the flowers. $3,000. "Mark, you spent $3,000 of our money on your affair. Money I contributed to, money that was supposed to be for our future. I was going to pay it back, ... double quotes, with what money? The raise you lied about getting. The bonus that went to your girlfriend instead of our savings account." Mark tried to speak, but Jessica held up her hand. "I'm not finished. I know about the work retreat where it started. I know about the weekly hotel meetings. I know that you've been telling Amanda you're going to leave me. I know that she's been planning a future with you while I've been planning a future with a man who doesn't exist." Jessica stood up and walked around the table, her heels clicking on the hardwood floor with authority. "Here's what's going to happen, Mark. You have a choice to make, and you have exactly 10 minutes to make it." 3 weeks after Mark walked out of her apartment and her life, Jessica was sitting in a trendy cafe in the Pearl District, laptop open, working on a logo design for a new startup when her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Almost ignored it, but something made her glance at the preview. "Jessica, this is Amanda Chen. We need to talk." Jessica stared at the message for a moment, then typed back, "About what?" The response came immediately. "About Mark." "About what really happened? Can we meet? I know you probably hate me, but there are things you need to know." Against her better judgment, Jessica found herself typing, "Stumptown Coffee on Division. 1 hour, I'll be at the table by the window." Jessica arrived first and chose a table with a clear view of the entrance. She ordered her usual oat milk latte and settled in to wait, curious despite herself about what Amanda could possibly want to say. Amanda walked in 15 minutes later, and Jessica was struck by how different she looked from her social media photos. In person, she seemed younger, more fragile, with dark circles under her eyes and an uncertain posture that suggested someone who had recently had her world turned upside down. "Thank you for meeting me," Amanda said, sliding into the chair across from Jessica. "I wasn't sure you would." "I almost didn't," Jessica replied honestly. "What do you want to talk about?" Amanda ordered a green tea with shaking hands before turning back to Jessica. "I want to apologize. And I want to tell you the truth about what Mark told me." "I'm listening." "He said you two were basically roommates, that you hadn't been intimate in over a year, that you were staying together out of convenience, that you both knew the relationship was over but were too comfortable to end it." Jessica felt her anger rising, but kept her voice calm. "And you believed him." "I wanted to believe him," Amanda admitted. "I was 24, fresh out of college, starting my first real job, when this sophisticated, successful, older man started paying attention to me. Started saying he'd never met anyone like me. I felt special. Special enough to date someone who was living with another woman." Amanda's cheeks flushed red. "He said you were just friends living together to save money. He said you were both seeing other people but keeping up appearances for work reasons." Jessica shook her head in amazement. "And it never occurred to you to question why? If we were just roommates, he had to sneak around to see you." "It did. But he always had explanations. He said you were judgmental about his dating life, that you'd make things difficult if you knew he was seeing someone from work. He made it sound like you were controlling and manipulative." "Of course he did. It's easier to justify cheating if you make the girlfriend into the villain." Amanda's tea arrived, and she wrapped her hands around the mug like she was trying to warm herself from the inside out. "The night you confronted him, he came to my apartment. He was crying, saying his ex-girlfriend had gone crazy, that you'd always been jealous and possessive, that you'd threatened to ruin his career if he didn't give you money." Ex-girlfriend Jessica's voice was dangerously quiet. "He said you two had broken up months ago but you refused to move out, that you'd been stalking him, going through his things, trying to sabotage his relationships." Jessica laughed, but there was no humor in it. "So in his version of events, I was the crazy ex who wouldn't let go, not the girlfriend who discovered her boyfriend was cheating with a coworker." "Yes," Amanda whispered, "and I believed him because I wanted to believe him, because the alternative was that I was the other woman, and I never wanted to be that person. But you figured out the truth eventually." Amanda nodded miserably. "Last week, Mark's coworker David let something slip about how sorry he was that Mark's long-term girlfriend had found out about us. When I asked what he meant, David looked confused and said everyone knew Mark had been living with his girlfriend for almost a year. So you realized Mark had been lying to you too. About everything." I started putting the pieces together. The way he was always paranoid about being seen together in public. The way he never invited me to his place. The way he paid for everything in cash and never wanted photos together. Amanda pulled out her phone and showed Jessica a screenshot of a conversation. "This is what he sent me when I confronted him about lying." Jessica read the messages, her anger growing with each line. Mark had called Amanda naive and needy, said she was too young to understand complicated adult relationships, and told her she should be grateful for the experience instead of causing drama like a child. "He's a piece of work," Jessica said, handing the phone back. "The worst part is that I think I was falling in love with him. Not the real him, obviously, but the person he pretended to be. And now I feel like such an idiot." Jessica studied Amanda's face, seeing genuine remorse and confusion rather than the calculating homewrecker she had imagined. "How long had you been working there when this started?" 2 weeks. He was assigned to mentor me, to show me the ropes. I was so grateful to have someone taking an interest in my career. I thought he was being kind." "He was grooming you," Jessica said bluntly. "You were young, new to the company, isolated from other relationships. He positioned himself as your guide and protector, then gradually escalated the relationship until you felt dependent on him." Amanda's eyes filled with tears. "I've been so angry at myself. How could I not see what was happening? Because he's good at manipulation. Trust me, I lived with him for almost a year and didn't see it either. He's had practice." "What do you mean?" Jessica hesitated, then decided Amanda deserved to know. You weren't the first, Amanda. When I was going through his things, I found evidence of at least 2 other emotional affairs during our relationship. You were just the first one that became physical. Amanda's face went white. Oh my God. Mark is a serial cheater. He gets off on the thrill of deception, on managing multiple relationships, on feeling like he's smarter than everyone else. You and I were both just characters in his game. They sat in silence for a moment, 2 women who had been played by the same man, processing the scope of his deception. I quit my job, Amanda said finally, because of this. I couldn't face going in every day, seeing him, having people whisper about what happened. And honestly, I realized that if Mark could lie to both of us so easily, he probably lies to clients, too. I don't want to work for someone like that. Jessica felt the unexpected surge of respect for the younger woman. What are you going to do now? I have some savings. I'm thinking about moving back home to Seattle, starting over somewhere where this whole mess isn't following me around. Running away isn't always the answer, Jessica said gently. Sometimes the best revenge is staying and succeeding despite what happened. Is that what you're doing? Jessica smiled for the first time since Amanda had walked in. Actually, I'm doing something better than revenge. I'm building the life I should have been building all along, instead of trying to fix a relationship with someone who didn't want to be fixed. She pulled out her phone and showed Amanda her recent projects. Since Mark left, I've landed 6 new clients, including a major contract with a Fortune 500 company. Turns out, I have a lot more time and energy for my career when I'm not worrying about why my boyfriend is acting weird. You seem so ... Together, so strong. I wasn't 3 weeks ago. I cried for 2 days straight. Then I got angry. Then I got strategic. Now, I'm getting successful. Jessica leaned forward slightly. Amanda, can I give you some advice? Please. Don't let Mark's lies make you doubt your worth or your judgment. You're not stupid for trusting someone who presented himself as trustworthy. You're not naive for believing someone you cared about. You're human. Amanda wiped her eyes with her napkin. How do you move on from something like this? How do you trust anyone again? You start by trusting yourself. You learn the red flags so you can spot them next time. And you remember that not everyone is Mark. Jessica signaled for the check. And Amanda, if you do decide to stay in Portland, I might have some freelance design work I could send your way. Your marketing background could be really valuable. You would do that. After everything, you didn't know. You were participating in hurting me. Mark did. He's the one who betrayed both of us. You and I are both victims of the same liar. As they walked out of the cafe together, Amanda turned to Jessica one more time. Can I ask you something personal? Sure. Do you think you'll ever be able to love someone again? After this, Jessica considered the question as they stood on the sidewalk outside the coffee shop. The Portland drizzle beginning to fall around them. I think I'll love someone better next time, she said finally. Because now I know the difference between someone who loves me and someone who loves the idea of me. Mark loved the idea of having a successful, independent girlfriend who made him look good. But he didn't love me enough to be honest with me, to respect me, or to choose me when it mattered. And next time, I'll choose someone who chooses me every day, not just when it's convenient. Mark sat frozen in his chair as Jessica paced slowly around the dining table, her voice steady and controlled despite the emotional earthquake that had shattered her world in less than 24 hours. Choice number 1, Jessica began, her tone businesslike and clear. You can try to salvage this relationship. You can end your affair immediately, quit your job to avoid working with Amanda, agree to couples therapy, and spend the next several years trying to rebuild the trust you've destroyed. You'll pay back every penny you stole from our joint account, and you'll accept that I will never fully trust you again. Mark opened his mouth to speak, but Jessica continued without pause. But before you choose that option, let me explain what it would actually look like. I would monitor your phone, your email, your social media, your location, every minute of every day. You would give up your privacy completely because you've proven you can't be trusted with it. Every time you're 5 minutes late, every time you take a phone call in another room, every time you smile at another woman, I'll wonder if you're lying again. That's not a relationship, Mark. That's a prison sentence for both of us. Jessica stopped directly in front of him, her hands resting on the back of the chair across from him. Choice number 2 is much simpler. You pack your things, you leave tonight, and you go build whatever fantasy life you've been promising Amanda. No drama, no fighting, no trying to make me the villain in your story. You take responsibility for your choices, and you let me move on with my dignity intact. Mark finally found his voice. Jess, please, it was a mistake. I love you. Amanda doesn't mean anything to me. Stop. Jessica's voice cut through his pleading like a blade. Don't you dare try to minimize what you've done by calling it a mistake. Forgetting to pick up milk is a mistake. Cheating for 3 months while lying to my face every single day is a choice you made over and over again. She pulled out her phone and showed him the screenshots she had taken of Amanda's social media posts. Amanda thinks you love her. Mark, She's been posting about her secret relationship with someone special who's going to change her whole life. She's been planning a future with you while I've been living in a lie. You can't call her meaningless when you've been promising her everything. Mark's shoulders slumped as he realized the full scope of what Jessica had uncovered. How did you find out all of this? Because I'm not stupid, and I'm not naive. You got careless with your phone last night, and I got curious. Then I got thorough. Jessica returned to her seat across from him. I'm a researcher by profession, Mark. When I want to find information, I find it. The question now, Jessica continued, is whether you're going to be honest for the first time in months, or if you're going to keep lying even now when the evidence is sitting right in front of you. Mark stared at the table for a long moment. When he looked up, there were tears in his eyes. I didn't mean for this to happen, but it did happen. And now you have to choose what happens next. What do you want me to say, Jess? But I'm sorry I'm so fucking sorry. I never wanted to hurt you. Then why did you? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Mark was quiet for several minutes, clearly struggling with whether to tell the truth or construct another lie. Finally, he spoke. Because it was easy. Amanda made me feel like I was interesting again, like I was successful and charming, and I don't know, special. With you, everything was real. Real responsibilities, real problems, real life. With her, I could pretend to be this amazing guy who had his shit together. Jessica felt a strange sense of relief hearing him admit the truth. So I was too real for you. That's not what I meant. It's exactly what you meant. I challenged you to be a better person, to grow up, to build something meaningful. Amanda lets you stay a child playing dress-up in an adult costume. Mark flinched at the accuracy of her assessment. You want to know the really tragic part? Jessica asked. I was planning to propose to you. Mark's head snapped up in shock. Next month, for your birthday, I had the ring picked out and everything. I was going to propose because I thought we had built something worth making permanent. While you were in hotel rooms with Amanda, I was planning our future. Jesus, Jess, I had no idea. Of course you didn't. You were too busy living your fantasy. To pay attention to reality, Jessica reached into her blazer pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Mark's eyes widened as she placed it on the table between them. I bought this 3 weeks ago. 2-carat diamond, white gold setting, exactly the style you admired when we went ring shopping with my sister last year. Do you remember that when we talked about getting married? Mark stared at the ring box like it was a bomb. I was going to give this to you and ask you to marry me. Jessica continued. I was going to tell you that I wanted to spend the rest of my life building something beautiful with you. Instead, I'm going to return it tomorrow and use the money for something better. What are you going to use it for? A celebration of my freedom from someone who was never worthy of this ring or the love it represented. Jessica stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the street where they had taken evening walks together, where they had talked about buying a house someday, where she had imagined their future children playing. Your 10 minutes are up. Mark, what's your choice? Mark looked around the apartment they had shared, at the photos on the walls, at the life they had built together. Then he looked at his belongings, stacked by the door, at the evidence of his betrayal spread across the table, at Jessica's face, which showed no trace of the forgiveness he might have hoped for. If I choose option 2, he said quietly, what happens to us? Do we ever speak again? Eventually, probably. When enough time has passed that I can remember the good parts of our relationship without feeling sick about the lies. But that won't be for a long time. And if I choose option 1, if I really commit to making this right, Jessica turned back to face him. Then you'll spend years trying to prove you're trustworthy to someone who will never fully believe you again. You'll give up your privacy, your independence, and probably your happiness for the chance to rebuild something that will never be as good as what we had before you destroyed it. That doesn't sound like much of a choice. It's not. That's the consequence of your choices. Mark, you don't get to cheat on someone and then have everything go back to normal because you're sorry. Mark sat in silence for another long moment. Finally, he stood up and walked to the pile of his belongings by the door. I need to ask you something, he said, without turning around. What, do you hate me? Jessica considered the question carefully. No, I don't hate you. Hating you would give you too much power over my emotions. I'm disappointed in you. I'm angry at the time I wasted on someone who turned out to be different than I thought, but I don't hate you. What do you feel then? Relief, Jessica said simply. Relief that I found out who you really are before I married you. Relief that I don't have to pretend anymore that everything is fine when it's not. Relief that I can stop trying to save a relationship that you already ended months ago. Mark picked up the first box of his belongings and headed toward the door. Mark, Jessica called after him. He turned around hopefully. Leave your key on the counter. 6 months later, Jessica stood in front of the mirror in her new apartment. A spacious loft in the converted warehouse district that she had purchased entirely with her own money. The morning sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating the walls lined with her award-winning design work and the vision board she had created the week after Mark left. Every goal on that board had been achieved or was well on its way to completion. Her business had tripled in size. She now employed 2 junior designers and had a waiting list of clients wanting to work with Rodriguez Designs. The Fortune 500 contract had led to 3 more major corporate accounts, and her work had been featured in Design Week magazine as an example of bold, authentic branding that tells true stories. She had lost 15 pounds without trying, simply because she was no longer stress eating or drinking wine every night to cope with the anxiety of living with someone she unconsciously knew was lying to her. Her skin was clearer, her energy higher, and her friends constantly commented on how vibrant she looked. Most importantly, she had rediscovered herself. The woman who had gotten lost in trying to be the perfect girlfriend for an imperfect man was back, stronger and more self-assured than ever. Jessica's phone buzzed with a text from Amanda, who had decided to stay in Portland after all and was now working as a marketing consultant for several small businesses, including some of Jessica's clients. Their professional relationship had evolved into a genuine friendship, bonded by shared experience but sustained by mutual respect and similar values. Coffee later, I have news. Amanda's message read. Jessica smiled and typed back, good news or dramatic news. Both. See you at 3. At exactly 3 o'clock, Jessica walked into their usual cafe to find Amanda practically bouncing in her seat with excitement. Okay, tell me, Jessica said, settling into her chair with her latte. I got a job offer. A really good one. Marketing director for a tech startup that's about to go public. Great salary, equity options, the whole package. Amanda, that's amazing. Congratulations, there's more. Guess who else applied for the same position? Jessica's stomach dropped. Please don't tell me. Marky applied 2 weeks ago. Apparently, after getting fired from his current job for inappropriate workplace relationships with junior staff members. Jessica shook her head in amazement. He never learns, does he? Gets better. During my interview, the CEO mentioned that they had interviewed a candidate who seemed qualified on paper, but when they called his references, several people warned them about his pattern of unprofessional behavior with female colleagues. His reputation is finally catching up with him. It gets even better, Amanda continued, her eyes sparkling with something that looked like justice. Remember how he always bragged about that Peterson account he was supposedly working on? Turns out that was a lie too. His old company lost that client because of Mark's unprofessional conduct, and word has gotten around the industry. Jessica felt a satisfaction she hadn't expected, not because Mark was suffering, but because the truth was finally being acknowledged by people who mattered. How do you feel about all this? Jessica asked. Honestly, free. For months I felt guilty about what happened, like I had somehow caused this mess. But seeing that he's continued the same pattern with other women, it confirms that this was never about me or you. This is who he is. Amanda pulled out an envelope and slid it across the table. There's something else. This came to my office yesterday. Jessica opened the envelope to find a handwritten letter in Mark's familiar scrawl. She read the first few lines and looked up at Amanda in disbelief. He's asking you to get back together with him. Read the whole thing, it gets worse. Jessica read the entire letter, her amazement growing with each paragraph. Mark had written that he realized Amanda was the one, and that his relationship with Jessica had been a mistake from the beginning. He claimed he had only stayed with Jessica out of pity, and that he had always known Amanda was his true soulmate. This is the same man who told me you were a meaningless fling, Jessica said, folding the letter. And who told you I was a crazy ex he couldn't get rid of? I know. And apparently, he's been sending similar letters to at least 2 other women he dated after us. Sarah from accounting showed me hers yesterday. Same format, same claims about soulmates and true love. Jessica handed the letter back. Are you going to respond? I already did. Amanda pulled out her phone and showed Jessica a screenshot of her reply. Mark, I'm not interested in being your backup plan or your rebound relationship. I've moved on to someone who values honesty and treats me with respect. I suggest you focus on becoming the kind of person who deserves love rather than trying to manipulate people into giving it to you. Perfect response. Short, clear, final. I learned from watching how you handled everything. You never stooped to his level, never let him make you the villain in his story, never let his lies become your reality. Jessica smiled, remembering how chaotic and painful those first few weeks after the confrontation had been. I had my moments of wanting to destroy him. I'm glad I didn't. Why didn't you? You had enough evidence to ruin his career, his reputation, everything, because destroying him wouldn't have healed me. And because the best revenge against someone who underestimated you is to become so successful and happy that their opinion of you becomes irrelevant. Amanda nodded thoughtfully. Speaking of being happy, how are things with David? Jessica's face lit up at the mention of her boyfriend of 3 months. David was a photographer she had met while working on a project for a local art gallery. He was genuine, communicative, and refreshingly honest about his feelings and intentions. Really good. We're taking things slow, but in a healthy way, not in a he's hiding something way. He's meeting my family next weekend. That's a big step. It feels right though. With Mark, I was always performing, trying to be the cool girlfriend who didn't need too much attention or commitment. With David, I can just be myself. What's the difference? Jessica thought about the question seriously. David doesn't make me feel like I'm too much. He doesn't get uncomfortable when I talk about my goals or my success. He doesn't try to diminish my achievements to make himself feel better. And when he says he loves me, I believe him because his actions match his words. That sounds amazing. It is, but you know what's even better? I'm not dependent on his validation for my happiness. I was happy before I met him, and I'll be happy if things don't work out. The difference between this relationship and what I had with Mark is that this is addition to my life, not the foundation of it. Amanda raised her coffee cup in a toast to building our own foundations. To choosing ourselves first, Jessica agreed, clinking her cup against Amanda's. As they sat in comfortable silence, Jessica reflected on how much had changed in just 6 months. She had gone from being a woman who discovered her boyfriend's betrayal to being a successful business owner who had turned that pain into power. The woman who had trembled while reading Mark's text messages was now confident enough to end relationships that didn't serve her, to demand respect in every area of her life, and to trust her instincts about people and situations. Most importantly, she had learned that love shouldn't require you to diminish yourself, compromise your values, or ignore red flags in the name of keeping the peace. Real love, the kind worth having, would never ask her to be less than who she was. Jessica's phone buzzed with a text from David. Hope your coffee date with Amanda is going well. Can't wait to see you tonight. Making dinner and renting that documentary you wanted to watch. Love you. No games, no hidden meanings, no wondering if he meant what he said, just straightforward communication from someone who genuinely cared about her happiness. Jessica showed the message to Amanda, who smiled and said, "That's what healthy looks like." Yeah, Jessica agreed, typing back a heart emoji. It really is. As they prepared to leave the cafe, Amanda turned to Jessica one more time. Thank you for meeting with me that day 6 months ago. I was so scared you would hate me. Thank you for being brave enough to reach out, and for choosing honesty over comfort. What do you think happened to Mark? Do you ever wonder? Jessica considered the question as they walked toward the door. I think Mark is probably still Mark, still lying, still manipulating, still believing that his next relationship will magically be different without him having to change anything about himself. Do you think he'll ever figure it out? Maybe. People can change if they really want to, but change requires admitting you were wrong, taking responsibility for your actions, and doing the hard work of becoming better. Mark always chose the easy way out. And us? What happened to us? Jessica smiled as they stepped out into the bright Portland afternoon. We chose the hard way. We chose to face the truth, to grow from the pain, to become stronger, instead of bitter. We chose to take control of our stories instead of letting someone else write them for us. And look how it turned out. Look how it turned out, Jessica agreed. As they hugged goodbye, Jessica felt grateful for the journey that had brought her to this moment. The betrayal had been devastating, but it had also been liberating. It had forced her to examine what she really wanted in life and relationships, and to stop settling for less than she deserved. Walking back to her car, Jessica realized that she no longer thought of Mark's cheating as something that happened to her. Instead, she thought of it as something that happened for her. It had been the catalyst that pushed her to create the life she had always been capable of building, but had been too comfortable to pursue. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you turns out to be the best thing that could have happened. Sometimes the person who breaks your heart does you the biggest favor of your life by showing you who they really are before you make an even bigger commitment to them. And sometimes, when someone shows you their true colors, the most powerful thing you can do is thank them for the clarity and walk away towards something infinitely better. If this story touched your heart, remember that your worth isn't determined by how someone else chooses to treat you. You have the power to transform any betrayal into a breakthrough, any ending into a new beginning, and any heartbreak into a stronger, wiser, more authentic version of yourself. The life you deserve is waiting for you to be brave enough to claim it.